Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fathoms Deep, a Black Sails podcast from Common Room Radio. I'm Liz Stevens.
And I'm Daphne Olive.
And we're jumping into episode 6 today. So we are really getting right into the thick of things now.
I know. I can't believe we've gotten this far already. It's amazing.
Yeah. And when you know what it made me think today, I hate to say it, is that, wow, season 1 really is not as strong as 2 and 3.
Well, that's true. That's definitely true. I know. And part of me is so excited. I feel like I'm like already have moments in later on that I'm just like chomping at the bit to talk about.
Right. I'm so excited to get back to those and to talk to those. And right now there's so much setup, of course, that has to happen. There are so many characters that we have to understand. But in particular, going into episode 6, especially since it came hot off the heels of episode 5, which was really a fast-paced episode, this one started off at a slow trudge. It seemed like there was a lot going on. And frankly, everything that didn't happen aboard ship was starting to lose my interest. So for those of our listeners who are new to to Black Sails, thank you for trudging through with us through season 1. It's good, we know, but it does get amazing as we go on.
Yeah, that is so true. It really is going to get more and more fun as time goes on. My thought about this episode was that, I know that, we've said this before, and it's a thing we know about the show, that it really is like one unit that's broken into pieces. But I felt like 5 and 6, more so than any other episodes, are almost like a 2-part.
Yes, definitely.
You know what I mean? Like and it'll come up a lot while we're talking today. Like, I feel like more so than even other episodes, I'm going to be tempted to like say, look at this compared to what was in the last episode. Like there really are, there's one arc or a few arcs, but it really is like one story between those 2 episodes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that that's where the pacing suffers, is because of that. It just happens because now we're starting in the middle instead of starting from the beginning.
Right, absolutely.
So it just takes a second.
Yeah, and we're setting up the last 2 episodes that are just really
That's also true.
Phenomenal
stellar,
episodes.
If I remember correctly. But again, it's been a while, so I'm really looking forward to come up onto the season finale.
Yeah. No. Even the next episode, I'm already really, really excited about.
And it's so fun for me to not remember like what comes next or when.
Yeah, I'll bet. I did actually last week watch ahead a little bit again.
Of course.
I couldn't resist. Like I finished this episode the first time I watched it, and I was like, oh, I'll just go to 7. But we don't need to talk about 7
really
yet.
hard for me
week.
to just watch it week to week. Really hard.
Yeah.
And I had a much more fun time. And of course, this is very different looking at it so critically and knowing that we're going to analyze it and talk about it. But it was so fun to just burn through this show when I first did.
So I feel like I keep, in a way, saying the same thing. We have 3 parts, more or less, this time. We
that
have
makes sense.
the
Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Yeah.
Especially this time because it's continuation. So we have the Walrus and Andromache story.
Yes.
Which now includes
the best part.
Yeah, which now includes now we know about the slaves that are in the hold of the Andromache, so they're a big part of that. And then we have the Nassau story, which is Eleanor and her consortium. And then we have the Ranger story, which also really includes Eleanor.
Yes.
So this is actually a really big Eleanor episode in a way that I hope will make people happy. I think this is an interesting Eleanor episode. I really do.
It's true. We're starting to get some more layers to the character, at least, and we're starting to be more interested in what is happening on Nassau.
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely. The 2 things that I just wanted to point out, they're just like really cool things that aren't character things and not really themes. So I wanted to bring them up in the beginning. Is one, the lighting in all of the night stuff on the ships, I think is just gorgeous. And they're
I didn't notice, but now that you say it, it was like full moonlight, wasn't it?
Right. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's not exactly natural night lighting, but the colors are really interesting. It's all blues and greens. It's very blue. Like it's a really saturated blue, which I think it was just gorgeous. I mean, my all-time favorite GIF from this whole show.
Yes.
Is
was so exciting to see today.
Is the moment when Flint kind of his coat's, going in the wind, but it's
billowing.
this like eerie, wonderful blue. And that's something that's
out
really
onto that plank. So that's a super cool scene. Yeah. Somebody was proud of that. That was somebody's baby.
Yeah, it was so gorgeous. And I love that everything's blue until the explosion. And then you get this shock of warm color of the yellows and reds of the explosion, just kind of
that's good.
punctuating the blue. So that's just me,
No, I'm so glad you
colors.
pointed that out, because now that you say that, it's obvious. But that's some great stuff and good storytelling in a visual sense.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
I think absolutely. And that leads to the other thing that I wanted to bring up that's just like this kind of overall thing that's not, that's talked about. But, the Walrus crew is living constantly in this episode with the threat of the Scarborough. We found out about the Scarborough at the end of the last episode, and it's just they do mention it, but even when they're not mentioning it, it's just this constant weight hanging over them.
Yeah,
this threat that the Scarborough is out there. They know it's not. They saw it when it was still daylight. So we have this kind of
that's so eerie, isn't it? No, it's just out there and it's waiting for you. Ooh,
right.
Yep.
And they lived in a reality where like you could just go completely black because they didn't have electric light or anything like that. If your ship was totally black, another ship would not see it. So this is like
makes me think of playing Battleship as a kid.
Yeah, exactly. Very much so. Yeah. So like so you have this like eerie light that's really amazing about the night, and this threat of the Scarborough, and then this explosion, this burst of warm color just punctuating the cool colors, and that's it. Like that's I just thought that the use of color really added to the eeriness, to the tension. There were just some really interesting visual choices they made this time. That I'll talk more about, but I just thought that was really, really interesting.
Prepare to board. Aye.
Okay, so where do we want to start?
Okay, so I was thinking, it's funny. Sadly, this is the last time we're going to do this, but I feel like we have many episodes in a row now started with Billy, and I think Billy, again, is the right place to start here.
It's the right place to start. No, I think you're correct.
He's not the first person we see this time. We had for the past few episodes. He was not the first person to see, but he's the second. That's the second. The first bit is seeing Max, but then we see Billy pretty early on, and obviously this, this is a very important Billy episode, and we should maybe raise a glass to our friend Billy Bones
raise
right
a glass
now.
To Billy Bones. Although I have to say this annoyed me the first time watching through, because I'm like, you can't kill Billy Bones. Billy Bones tells the story of Treasure Island. We all know he's fine. Stop dicking around with me.
I feel like I heard an interview with him where he actually said to the producers, he said, "Wait a minute, I'm dead," and they're like, "No, of course you're not.
No, you're not dead." Have you read the book? That's hysterical. Yeah. But yes. No spoilers.
Oh,
so
shoot.
As soon as I saw this moment, I was just like, yeah, this is silly.
Oh,
Billy
shoot.
has to come back.
We did just totally spoil that for anyone who didn't make that
no,
connection.
I mean, again, because you know he has to come back.
All right. That's true.
I
apologize to anyone who didn't know that.
Tale.
Yeah, I apologize to anyone who didn't know that.
I don't. No apologies.
Okay, fine. I don't apologize either. We'll just be temporarily sad for his plight.
Exactly. Temporarily sad for the plight of Billy Bones.
Okay.
William Bones Manderley.
I know. We get his last name. Okay, so let's talk about him. So the first moment we see him is when he's talking to Logan. And
yeah, that's that guy's name. Okay.
Right, yeah.
Logan's a loose cannon, too.
Yeah, Logan's important in this one. And we've seen him before, but this was really where we've seen Logan throughout. But this is where Logan becomes more important. So, and then Logan says that thing. He's like, okay, it's going to be dawn. If we don't manage to get these guns, is Flint going to let us leave? Because they have this threat of the Scarborough. So Logan says that, and then the face that Billy makes is just, I don't know, he's like sad, he's resigned. It's really, I just feel like he's been so beaten down by this situation, this tension he has between his loyalty and his responsibilities and what he's given up for Flint and what he his fear of Flint, and I just felt like
makes you wonder how he sleeps at night.
Not very well. Although I don't know, are any of them sleeping very well?
Right. At this point, that's true. This is an all-nighter for everybody, regardless.
Right. And then he talks to Gates. That's the next time we see Billy is he's talking to Gates, and he brings up, he's like, how did the Scarborough thing happen? Richard Guthrie. And then he gets into, he's like, wait a minute, wasn't he supposed to be guarded at the Barlow woman's house? What's up with that? Do we know anything about her? Like, he's
throwing
really
shade. Yep.
So we just get a series of him talking to Gates, and things kind of escalate where, he starts out questioning Gates about Flint and Mrs. Barlow. And the thing I wanted to talk about, the other visual thing that's really, we've got the Scarborough looming, and then we have Flint literally looming over everyone through the whole episode pretty much. Like, he's up on the upper deck.
He's always up on that upper deck. Yeah.
He's up on this upper deck, and he like, I don't even have Flint listed here because Flint doesn't, he's a presence in this episode more than he's a
very
character.
Assertive captain in this episode, though, too. Like, there's no doubt who's in the captain's seat. And I like that as soon as people start to throw shade on that and start to question it.
Yeah, right. That makes an interesting dynamic, but
it
Flint,
does.
It's just like, I feel like, every time Billy and Gates talk, like, Flint's there. He's either up watching them, or at the second conversation, he actually comes in and clearly has heard some of it when Billy brings up the letter. So Billy found the letter. Mm-hmm. I mean, he had the letter. Sorry. He already had the letter. And I thought it was an interesting little moment of rebellion where he goes and grabs the thing for light. And somebody said,
that's true.
Right. Somebody
says, Captain said no light.
Right.
Like, I know.
He said, anyway. I know, exactly. He's just like, I know. And he didn't say I'm doing it anyway, but he does that. He says, I know. And he does it anyway. And then he reads that letter. And,
And it's certainly not any happier for having this new piece of information.
No, really not. And I just think there's just such an interesting dynamic between him and Gates about this that brings up
Are we putting him and Gates together then for this?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I feel like it's too hard not to. No, it's okay. It's hard not to.
Right.
But I love how when he first goes to Gates is like, yeah, I see that. What do you want me to do about it now? Right now, we're in battle, and this piece of paper means nothing to me. I know nothing about this woman. I know everything about this captain, and I also know that he has my sworn allegiance in battle.
Right.
So basically, shut up until later.
Exactly.
We'll look at it later.
Right. Which is the appropriate.
It is
the appropriate response. They are in battle, and Gates. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch because Billy's so concerned, and he's also angry at Gates. The second time, he calls Gates out. I mean, he says, I know about the Maria Lane. I know that you knew what Flint did and that you didn't do anything about it. So he is also upset with Gates, and he's really challenging him. He's saying, what are you going to do about this? Promise me you're going to do something in Nassau. And there's this really just sad, scary, I'm not sure what word to put on it, this juxtaposition of when he's reading the letter. And we're hearing it in Miranda's voice, but when he's reading the letter, that is exactly, they're cutting back and forth between that and when they're lowering the one man down when they lower the one man down to lower deck to try to use, it looks like he has a little bomb against.
Oh yeah, the
against
thing.
Against Bryson's the remnants of Bryson's crew, and so you're having this juxtaposition of reading this letter where he's talking about Flint betraying his crew, and watching exactly the moment when we get to watch what happens, like the stakes are so high that people die because of Flint's orders.
Yeah. And that's what Logan calls out, right? Is that he'll just keep on sending men down. He'll just pick us off one by one.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
for the cause.
So we have the guy down in the lower deck with the letter, and then immediately after we have the conversation where Billy says to Gates, what does he say? He says something like he's playing with the lives, like he brings up the Maria Lane and says it's happening again. He's playing with the lives of our crew. And we saw that. We exactly saw that.
Yeah.
And again, Gates just like, stop. You need to stop now. Like this is not the appropriate time for this. And and then the third thing is with the new plan of dangling the crew down the side, and Flint names who he wants to be in it. One of them's Logan, and Logan stands up to him.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Logan tries to bring Billy in. He says, "Tell him, Billy."
Yeah, twice. Yeah.
Right.
Which
and
is really not cool, by the way, Logan.
No. Right. He's the one breaking the rules. Flint is, I mean, maybe Flint is, again, breaking larger rules, but at that moment, it's Logan who's breaking the rules. He's not supposed to contradict his captain in battle. Yeah. And then we have that beautiful moment with Gates, like the thing that we saw in the first episode, his kind of diversion techniques.
Diversionary tactics.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Where he jumps in. Mm-hmm.
Right, and he jumps in and it was just so
saves
beautiful.
Billy's butt. Yeah.
Yes.
He absolutely saves Billy, or so we hope and think, from the ire of the captain, which would be well-deserved in that moment.
And saves Logan as well. I mean,
saves Logan as well. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
He takes Logan out of the equation by punching him.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. He's serving so many different things at the same time. Like
that's true. Yeah,
he shows his
reminding everyone who's boss. Mm-hmm.
Exactly right. He shows his allegiance to Flint, takes the pressure off of Billy, takes Logan out of the equation until Logan can no longer be in that crew. All at the same time. It is
masterful. You're right.
I know.
It's pretty masterful.
It's just one of those beautiful moments of how Gates manages people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Because he understands people. I mean, he just really goes in there and does what everyone needs to have happen at that moment.
Yeah.
And then luckily they don't have to do it anyway because somebody sees that bit of fabric on the ropes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So what do you think of that? Like, how believable is that? I mean,
I liked that. That was, I mean, I thought they were lucky that anybody saw it at all. But they played the only card that they could. Yeah.
Right. No, I love what happens after, but is it believable? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a pirate and I don't live on a ship. So I don't know how closely they're monitoring every single rope and such, but I always felt like that was a bit convenient that somebody saw that bit of fabric.
Interesting. Yeah. I am for it. I like it. I think it's a good bit of storytelling.
Okay. I will just be happy with that then.
But let's go to the end with Billy and Gates, right? If we're going to talk about the two of them, because Billy ends up on the side of the boat cutting down that piece of broken mast with Flint.
Yep.
And I think as soon as Flint follows Billy out there, we start to get a little nervous, right? When they're out there on the ropes, they're in the wind and the rain.
We do. And
he chooses that moment to say, what were you talking about? What did you see?
Right.
What was in the letter?
What was in that letter? And the thing is, Billy says, I think you know what was in the letter. Flint doesn't actually know what's in the letter.
Flint does not know what was in that letter. Yeah. And I wonder what it would be like if he had just said so. But I guess, it's his word against whatever Billy has already concocted in his head is the truth. And at that point,
I don't see Flint ever being like, wait, I don't know what you're talking about. Let me explain. Like,
yes, it's true. But again, now's not the time. We're in battle right now.
Right, exactly. Oh, right. I wanted to say can I quote Gates, because I feel like this with all of this reading of Republic of Pirates, this is really what Gates said right after punching Logan. Is he says, "While we're in battle, the captain's orders are law. That is what we signed up to. That is what we agreed." Like it is actually in there.
Yeah, it's in the contract.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when it's a hard scene. It's a hard scene, and I feel like I watched it each time. The first time I watched it a few times, because I really, we don't see it happen. We don't see Billy go over.
Yep.
We don't know.
I rewinded it this time. I rewinded it this time to be like, okay, did I say rewind? I guess it's back it up now. Nobody rewinds having a VHS anymore. But anyway, I backed it up a little bit to see that again, to see if we do see anything, if there's any kind of clue, but there is nothing. There is just Flint's word. There is nothing. Now there is, I mean, again, we have the story 2 episodes again with Morley suddenly dying in a situation. I mean, that was certainly, what was going on in your head? or what is I should say. Yeah.
I definitely thought that Flint was involved in Billy's falling over. I mean, the way they play it, he could have just gone overboard. Like, they really leave it ambiguous.
They do.
My feeling was that Flint was somehow involved.
Yep. And that's, I guess that's me too. Like, I agree.
Right.
I think obviously they leave it ambiguous. My gut tells me that Flint was at least involved. Maybe he didn't actually physically throw him from the boat.
Right.
But maybe he loosened a rope, or maybe he accidentally cut the wrong one, or maybe
he just didn't catch him. I mean,
yeah.
The truth is, this will get cleared up. We will find out later on. I think that's in season 2, though. Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't think they clear it up even then. I know that they talk about it. We'll see.
Okay.
They talk about it again, but
they
I
do
don't
talk
think it
about
is
it.
ever cleared. It's
right.
just
Well, there are
talked
actually,
about, so.
there's going to be a few conversations about it, and you may be right. It may never be 100% clear.
Yep.
We have a conversation coming up soon about it, not in this episode, and right, this is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
I think it's pretty clear.
And poor Gates looks brokenhearted,
and
also he seems to at least suspect Flint, and suspect I think is probably too.
I think that's mild.
It is not strong enough a word, because I think he knows. As far as he is concerned, Billy knew too much and paid the price.
Right, and he was really worried. Like the last exchange we have between Gates and Billy, he saw Billy talking to Dufresne.
Yeah.
And Gates actually called Billy over. Like, up until then, it had always been Billy trying to talk to Gates, trying to get to Gates. And then Gates had shut him down. And then the last time he sees Billy talking to Dufresne, and he calls Billy over, and Billy says, are you worried I have loose lips? And that's when Billy, the last thing Billy says to Gates is, he didn't say promise me, but he said, you're going to get answers about this when we get back to Nassau, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy sad. And yeah, watching when they throw the sword into the water, and just the look on Gates's face, and the fact that Flint takes the sword from Logan. I mean, just that whole pretty quiet
And what do you think
moment.
about that? Do you think that moment was there so that you think it was Flint covering his own skin so that no one suspected him, so that he looked sad? Or do you think he was genuinely feeling some sort of remorse?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I never again, we've also had some feedback from listeners about Flint. I mean, I do stand by my opinion that Flint cares about pirates. I don't know how much he cares about any individual member of his crew.
Right, but it's the cause that he cares
except
about.
Gates. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Flint and Gates really do have a friendship. So how sad is he about Billy? I don't feel like he's shown really any particular affection. Okay, affections. He doesn't have affection, but he barely shows affection to Miranda.
About, right? Goodness.
But yeah, I don't think he's really seen Billy as anything other than a person who's useful to him in the managing of the crew. Unlike his relationship with Gates, where there are split seconds of him seeming to have a real relationship with Gates.
Yeah.
So no, I think this was all theater. I think that and perhaps appropriate.
I'm
I don't
inclined
know.
to agree with
I
you.
don't know what the
think
tradition is. I mean, maybe the captain is supposed to be the person who throws the sword into the water.
It didn't seem that way, though.
No, it didn't seem like that. And Gates was not pleased.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Was he not?
Yeah, he was. Oh, I don't know if he was not pleased specifically about Flint taking the sword and throwing it in the water, but you go from Flint throwing the sword in the water to a little, or maybe you don't close up on Gates, but I'm looking at Gates, so he's on the other side of him. Well, right, and there's no way he would look happy. I mean,
obviously, yeah.
We know that Gates has a huge amount of affection for Billy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And he called him son several times in this episode.
I know. It's really,
It was heartbreaking. Yeah.
It really is
Gates,
so
and I love the
heartbreaking.
Gates and Billy relationship, and to lose it for any amount of time sucks. Yeah.
It's true. I mean, it's really in a world where we don't have a lot. I mean, we don't have a lot of actual family relationships. We have the Guthries.
Yeah.
We have the Guthries, you know.
It's like the most dysfunctional family ever.
Right. It's like we have a negative example of a family
Yeah.
structure. So Billy and Gates, in a way, are really our only, you know, family-like relationship that we see. I mean, obviously there are other people on the island that are not pirates, but of our characters, Billy and Gates were the closest thing we had to that. And it's very heartbreaking.
Well, and it was a bummer too, because Billy is the one who's so easy to root for because he is questioning right and wrong. Whereas Gates seems resigned to doing what's wrong for the sake of the cause, you know, not as heartlessly necessarily as Flint will, but he's still...
He's a player.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah,
I mean, he's a good person who's a player, but he is a player.
He's just been around so long.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely.
And we've seen Billy is following that arc. We saw that in the last episode where he was learning from Flint about how when you tell the truth and when you don't, and when you push forward and when you don't. So that's the other reason it was hard for me to lose Billy, is because there were that many less people in the show that I felt I could like trust and root for.
Right.
So now I've just got Gates to completely get behind, and I'm still just back and forth and on the ropes with Flint.
Well, and we also lost our audience surrogate. So that's an interesting thing. It's almost like we're adrift now. And I this way of looking at him as audience surrogate is relatively new to me because of the way we're looking at the show for the podcast. So now I'm really, honestly, personally curious what's going to happen now. I really feel like Billy has very much been that for us.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, are we going to have someone? Is it going to be multiple people? Like where are they taking us now as far as who we're supposed to identify with?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, so next we're going to talk about Miranda. She's not in here very long. But it is a scene that I have very mixed feelings about.
Yeah. This is my most challenging piece with Miranda Barlow. Up until now, I have been her defender, and I have been saying how much I relate to her, and that she's one of the characters that I just feel like I intuitively understand and who resonates with me. So this particular episode is challenging for me, so much so that I kind of block it out, to be honest. As the show had moved forward. So it's interesting because we start with her reciting the letter, which we know must be behind the back of Flint. There is no way that Flint knows what she's proposing in this letter. And
that is actually supported in the show. Like Pastor Lambrick actually says to her, I mean, it was interesting. He used the same word. Like he talked to her about, he was worried for her in theory, because
of what would happen if Flint found out.
Because he said because of your betrayal of Flint.
Right.
So this is
and that is how that letter feels. Like it read to me like a betrayal of him, and it did. The fact that it was confiscated by a crew member and could have cost Flint his life is very problematic. For what seems like a long shot, right?
Right.
To just have everything wiped away and life is fine for you in Boston because you sent some guy a 500-pound note and said, hey, you know, we repent. That doesn't work for anybody. That's a fairy tale, right?
Right. Well, this comes back to what I said. Remember I said when I talked about Richard Guthrie's plan, I think that, you know, Richard Guthrie convinced her that this is something really possible. We heard him talk about how in Boston she could start a new life and it's not London. I mean, I think
there are so many chances for us to break into Hamilton in this episode. Have you noticed? It's killing me. I'm restraining myself really, really well. Okay. But there have been a lot of times.
I know. I think I actually, I don't remember what it was.
There was one back there. I don't know what it was either, but it was there.
We
it
raised
was ripe for the picking.
We raised a
glass. That was it. That's exactly what it was.
Yep. All right. Yes.
Anyway.
So anyone who
That's
didn't
okay.
know about
Moving
this about us is that we are both a bit Hamilton obsessed.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.
Okay, but back to Miranda.
Okay,
Yes.
so right, so I feel like we get the confirmation here of what I had said was going on. You know that
Yes.
Pastor Lambrick talks about Richard Guthrie is now I've forgotten the name, but he's with one of the big landowners on Nassau, and so he's kind of reintegrating himself into the non-pirate culture.
Right.
And is being protected. And Pastor Lambrick is worried about Miranda because the way he sees it, she has betrayed Flint.
Right. And she needs that kind of protection as well. And yet here she is alone in this house. Mm-hmm.
Right. I think in her eyes, I don't know. In her eyes, I guess she has not betrayed Flint. I mean, I'm sure she understands that this was against his wishes. I don't think she sees it exactly as a betrayal.
No,
although she understands that he wouldn't be happy about it.
Right. Yeah. She has made she's made a decision on what she believes will be best for the two of them. And it's interesting because she begins by defending Flint and saying that he is my deliverer.
Yes.
At first
absolutely.
I had this life with my husband. My husband was wonderful. And then, and what does she say exactly then? She's vague about it, purposefully so. But says that when she says her husband was killed, right? Is that what she says?
She hints at it. I mean, she says that they were happy and that was a dangerous thing, which this, in my eyes, goes back to the whole civilization being about shame thing.
Yeah.
I think she's hinting at that somehow the world of the civilized world just couldn't stand the way they were living. That they were so happy. And that she says very specifically, Flint was my deliverer.
Yeah, that's exactly the word that she uses. Flint was my deliverer. Yeah. And she says it in such a way to say that, and is therefore not a threat to me. You're worrying for the wrong reasons. So all of that is fine. Yeah. And all of that I go with. That's fine. But then we get this really weird exchange that happens where she starts talking about her life in London. And at first, I'm totally with her because, again, I've said before that I understand where she has put herself into this position because it seems weird in a lot of ways that she is a Puritan. And yet
I think we understand now that she's not actually a Puritan.
Right. This is where she puts all of her cards on the table and everything else, so to speak. So, yeah. So she has this conversation with Pastor Lambrick, and it's so weird because she leads off, and this is something that happens a lot in TV, and it's really frustrating to me. But it's hard to tell in this scene if the writers were doing it purposefully to show the irony or if it's just that same trope over and over again. But here's what happens again and again on TV is that we have this person who is usually a religious person who is very conservative, who is very devout, and who is very buttoned up, so to speak. And then this free spirit person comes in and, like Muhammad coming down from the mountain, enlightens them and says, if you have sex with me, you will be free like I am. And then they do. And it's always weird for me because I'm like, okay, it seems weird to me that sex becomes the highest tier of human freedom and experience when like anyone and any animal can have sex. So like I was totally understanding when she was talking about the great minds of the time meeting in her parlor and her missing that. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, that's a big thing to be missed. But why is just having sex with anyone you want to, whenever you want to, why is that part of that higher enlightenment? And it seems like, does that mean that she thinks that sex that she read about in Song of Solomon, which was very much within the constraints of the religious constraints of the time, is less sincere and is less satisfying? And if that's the case, how can we compare that with that completely joyless, unsatisfying sex she was having with Flint? Like, her open sexuality has not given her any more satisfaction than the buttoned up constraints of Lambert. Like, maybe you're both doing it wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
Does
Well,
that-
I think that was an example of them doing it wrong for sure.
Yeah. And of
you-
course, like the oppression of her sexuality is very particular to Miranda's story. And of course, it's going to be part of her character because of that. But it seems unfortunate that now it's basically made her character like the door-to-door evangelist of open sexuality. So she's essentially saying you should be ashamed of your narrow view of sex and morality, even though she has just said, I want to free you of this yoke of shame that you have upon yourself. That's what my husband would have done.
right.
But then she does the same thing. And it's really weird to me. I don't understand.
No, she's shaming him for something else. I mean,
Right?
there's a nugget in there that's really beautiful. There's a nugget in there where she's talking about her husband.
Yeah.
And
About Thomas. Mm-hmm.
right. So you get this vision of Thomas as she said that. What did she say? That she said he would be a devil's advocate with you,
Right.
you know, for hours on end, and he would do it out of love because he wants to free you of the yoke of shame. And that description to me does not relate at all to what she did. Like that,
I
to
agree.
me,
Like that was a super
that-
sloppy execution, if that's what she was
right,
going for.
exactly. I think that's exactly the right description of what she was. She did a super sloppy version of trying, and I think because she's angry. So this is how I'm seeing it. Like I also this
Okay.
has been
No, please. I absolutely
such
want
a
to hear your...
hard. This has been such a hard scene for me because I find
Yeah.
it so. Not just uncomfortable. I don't mind uncomfortable. I think we've gotten far enough into Black Sails to understand that there's just some uncomfortable sex.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that-
it's part of the storytelling.
And that right, and that is part of the storytelling because we don't have a lot of happy people. These are not happy people,
yeah.
right?
For
I
sure,
think the
yeah.
thing that we can say across the board, they're all different. The thing they all have in common is they're not like happy people who sit on a porch and have lemonade and just
It's
sit
true.
there and just
Yeah.
say, you know what, life's pretty great. These are not those people.
Right, for sure.
And but this vision of Thomas, I loved. I love the idea of them, this vision
Yeah.
of a man who will talk to you all night to just help you be the best you.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
sure.
But with her, again, let's remember what we said about her last week. Like, this woman is so sad and so lonely,
Yeah.
and I think quite angry. I mean, we've
Yeah.
not, she's just, whether or not she had the level of generosity of spirit that she described in her dead husband,
Mhm.
whether she ever had that or not, we don't know. But I think that her situation now, even if she did have it, has just beaten that out of her. And so
Yeah.
she I think on some level she probably thought she was doing the same thing, but also on some level she's probably really angry at all these people who've been judging her all this time, including Pastor Lambert. And so she used sex to shame him. She said that she's, that she's implying that she's using it to free him of something, but what she's doing is she's using it as a blunt instrument to expose his hypocrisy.
Ugh,
And
I don't like that even more.
Huh?
I said that wrong, but it's like that's worse. Is what I meant
It
to
is
say.
worse.
That's
No, it is worse, but I feel like it makes more sense
Yeah.
as the actual motivation for her. Like,
That's
it's
hard for me though because it makes me lose some of
sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
I mean,
it's
this
okay.
is coming
That's
from.
good
I
even.
said last episode, like, I have had mixed feelings about her.
that. Yeah.
And this is part of it. Is I do feel like this was a very hostile act on her part.
Hostile is a good word for it. It was.
And
very...
she calls him out. She says, "Look, you're pretending to come here to protect me, but that's not why you're here." And I think on some level she's right about that.
On some level, sure, yeah. I mean, obviously there has always been an attraction there, and she has always known it, and she's always milked it just a little bit. But
Right.
again, I was giving her the benefit of the doubt that it was because she was lonesome and because she wanted this conversation, because she missed those parlor room talks.
No, and
so
I
she,
think that's true. All of that is true.
and that's true. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
No, she can be
That's a good point.
lonely and sad and worthy of our sympathy, and at the same time be, have this hostility and be acting out on it. I mean,
Yeah, that's a
we're
good
about
point,
to talk
Daphne.
about Anne, but
Yeah.
like we give Anne room to be, this brutal killer and this person we have sympathy for, it's okay to allow Miranda both, that breadth of character.
Yes.
That, that she can be someone we admire and that we empathize with, and that is not always good.
Yeah, that's a good point, Daphne. Okay. I accept that. It's a tough scene. I don't like it. I don't like her in this moment, and that's okay.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Oh, good. Are we done with the scene? Because it's not a scene I love either. I know. It's a hard one because you want to just like her, and
right.
This is not admirable behavior. There's nothing to admire in the way she just acted.
All right. Well, good.
Whew.
Agreed.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Let's move on to another character that we admire and is kind of doing bad stuff at the same time. Now we're going to talk about Mr. Scott.
Oh, Mr. Scott is very interesting in this one, isn't he?
Exactly.
This will be a hard one to not have any spoilers on. So, okay. All right. I'm ready to give it a try.
So, yeah, I do actually. I want to bring up that Jen did Jen, our friend Jen on Twitter, did bring up something to me, and I've never been so tempted to do a spoiler zone as I am right now, but we're not going to. I think I'm just, again, these are short seasons and we only have 3 of them. We're just going to hold on to stuff we want to say right now about Mr. Scott, and we'll remind everyone of this moment when we get to that stuff. Okay, so we have Scott in the hold of the Andromache with the chained slaves. He is now one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're introducing a character. I think it's okay for me to say that she is going to be not a major character, but she's going to be a character we have throughout. And her name is Erne. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Okay.
And that's the woman he's talking to. And I think she is spectacular.
Yeah.
I love
her immediately. She's so good. And I love that the casting choice was to make her a woman, because it seemed that in a lot of ways, the different talks that she had with him and the things that she was whispering behind him in his ear seemed to be the words of a young, strong man. And I loved that it was a young, strong woman. It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah, well, women. This is a strong woman episode.
It is. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, okay, Miranda aside, Miranda, we have very mixed feelings about.
And even Miranda was being strong in her way. She was making a mistake, I would say, and she was being foolhardy and not cautious, and she was being cavalier, is what she was being.
Right. But I feel like this is the gateway. This is the first episode that really is going to begin really just such an interesting storyline throughout the rest from this moment on about women in what is a story that you could write off as a story about men.
Yeah.
And this is, we just have these moments that are just going to grow and become more important and introduce new characters. But I feel like this is the episode where we really bring women's issues and just a lot of really interesting gender stuff into this show, which is
cool.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, it is great.
Okay. But what happens with Scott is right. So I thought it was really interesting that, that there was a man, like they're passing this bit of fabric, the one we talked about already that they find on the ropes. And there's a man speaking in an African dialect, and Erne is translating to Scott.
Right. Uh-huh.
And then we get through a little bit of it, and Scott's refusing to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And he explains, and this is interesting relative to the stuff we said in the beginning of the podcast about pirates freeing slaves, and the part that I hadn't thought about, even though I've seen the show so many times, but it really comes up here, is that, she says, we heard that in Nassau, we could be freed. Yeah. And he says, well, actually really only the strong ones. Like basically the ones who could be recruited as pirates would be freed. The rest of you would
pirates
just be
and prostitutes.
Cargo.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of you would just be sold off again. You would just be, you would just be merchandise that they would sell.
Yeah.
So that is
well, we had that line before when Pastor Lambrick was talking to Miranda about where Guthrie was. He used the word overseers, some of the harshest overseers. So that there is slavery on Nassau.
There is slavery on Nassau, and that's. But again, the people living in the interior are actually tied to our quote unquote civilization, the world of slaves, and because they're plantations. I mean, that's what's happening in the interior is part. Those people still would like very much to be an active colony of England. They do not want. They don't want in on this.
That's true.
On this, right? But there is this distinction that only the strong men would be the ones who would be taken on as pirates.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this in the Walrus crew. We have people of African descent that we can assume were free slaves. There weren't a lot of people of African descent who were living free in that time. But the other interesting thing is that, she's translating, and at some point she says to him, he's saying, and Scott says, I know what he's saying.
Oh, I missed that.
And
that's great.
I know. So that is really, because we've seen Scott so much in the world, in Eleanor's world.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, obviously we knew he was their slave because Richard Guthrie made that very clear.
Right. Yeah, he did. Mm-hmm.
But this connection with being African is something that we had, this was a moment that really pointed out that he is an African.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mm-hmm.
So that was really, that was one thing in this part of the story that really struck out to me. And then he says, when she's saying, why would you not want to help us? And he says, there are weapons on this ship that are dangerous to someone I love.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just going to go so far to say is we will learn later there may be more than one interpretation of this. That's as spoilery as I'm going to get.
Okay. That's good because frankly, I'm again with the Carson and Lady Mary thing. I'm just like, but why though? But why?
I know. I understand that you're saying why. In my eyes, there is no doubt, not a sliver of doubt, whether we think it's a good thing for him to love her or not.
Oh no, he loves Eleanor. Yeah,
he loves her.
Eleanor. I just don't know why. Yep, he does.
Right.
Yep,
right.
That happens sometimes. Sure,
but again,
well, I'm sure he's known her since she was a child too, and that changes things.
Exactly. Right. So it's the same thing with Downton Abbey. We don't understand why Carson loves Mary so much, but we never question that he does.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like it.
Again, just thank you, Jen. There is another interpretation. We will talk about that in many episodes from now.
Yes, in the future.
Also, in addition. Okay, so then we have this really, in a later part, we have this really, I just feel like it's a really powerful exchange with Erne where she says, look, you think you're different than us. I'm sure you've convinced yourself that you're different. And then, and then he says, look, I'm not, he just keeps saying no. And she's like, wow, you must really love these people who you are willing to sacrifice your freedom for. And then at the last minute, when that tool clangs down on the ground and she grabs it, we think, I really believed the first time when I watched it, I really believed when the person from the Andromache crew comes down and he says it's her and points to Erne, I honestly believed that he was just turning her in and not using that as a way to turn on that crew member and strangle him.
Yeah.
What did you think the first time?
I don't. Yeah, I was surprised when he jumped up. But, I even thought, actually, that it wasn't until he saw how she was going to be treated because of that. Because it would seem that if he'd said it was her, that she'd be killed immediately. But the guy goes in like he's going to rape her instead. And that's when I see something break in Scott and he says no.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that actually works better for me because for me, my next question was going to be, do we believe this? Like, do we believe that he made this sudden turn?
To me, that's why
you're saying it was chivalry. Chivalry is what made him act in the end.
Yeah. Well, and again, he's gone through so much to protect Eleanor. I think he wants to protect. I mean, he has that in him, just that that guardian sense, and hasn't been that long, but there is a connection developed between them now, and it would have been his fault.
That totally works for me. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about Scott.
Okay, great.
But yeah, there's going to be a lot about this story that's going to be very interesting.
Yes.
Which we can't get into now.
Mark it. Yep. We'll come back to this one.
Okay. So now let's move on to Eleanor.
Okay.
The thing that I really noticed this time, again, I gotta say, I love watching the show for a podcast. I look at it
very
so
different, isn't it? Yeah,
it's amazing. It's like I love this show so much, and if anything, this makes me love it a million times more. So I love that we went. There's a cut where we go directly from a conversation about being a slave in the hold between Erne and Scott, and we still see them when we hear Lillywhite. Is it Lillywhite? Yes. That we hear Lillywhite's voice saying, those who want to make us slaves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Talking about the Guthrie. Well, talking about Eleanor Guthrie, I guess, because
yeah.
Richard's gone. And I just thought that was a really interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah,
I don't know how
I didn't notice
feel
that.
about it. Like, because it's weird, because we were just with people who are actual truly actually slaves. I mean, I know like the pirates are angry, but it was just an interesting. I don't know. I wanted to bring it up. I'm not really sure how I feel about it or what I think about it. I felt like it's not actually a great comparison. They're not slaves,
right?
They're angry.
No, I missed
people.
that entirely. So yeah.
I saw it just recently for the first time. I noticed it recently for the first time. Okay, so then we get into they're waiting for Eleanor to decide whether she's going to back down off of her position about Vane.
Right. Yeah. She's taking her time. Always pissed about it, but she does.
Right. She does.
And I like that she does it with just the nod. She doesn't do some kind of big speech. So I appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, I don't think she ever would have done it with anything other than a nod, because this is not something she wants to do.
It's true. Yeah.
The interesting thing about it is that Hornigold, she nods to Hornigold, obviously. Yep. That's the person she needs to talk to. And then Hornigold says, I will take the good news to Lillywhite and tell him he can stand down. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing about this is that Lillywhite was making these speeches about Eleanor before she took Vane's crew away. So I just feel like there is actually a hint here that maybe Lillywhite and Hornigold were working together. I mean, I think it's
I
not...
don't think so necessarily.
Okay,
just
all right.
It's just that she is at least now seeing reason and backing down. Yeah. And that it's enough. Because that was the straw that broke the camel's back, was the thing with Vane. That's where he started having all those listeners. Remember? Because Lillywhite was out there every day, he said, with 2 or 3 guys. They're like, well, now there's 1 million guys back there. Yeah.
Right. No, that's true. And maybe I'm getting the timeline wrong. Maybe Lillywhite started his speeches after the Vane thing. It just seemed weird to me. Yeah. Like, if Lillywhite had been making these speeches before all of this, why would he stand down now? Like, the other people could stand down. And maybe it was less for
Lillywhite and more for the crowd around him.
Right. Okay. All right. I'll let that go. I just noticed that last time, and it was just like, huh. Mm-hmm. But yes, I will let that go, because you're right. It's not important ultimately. But what is important is moving on to Eleanor and Anne and Silver.
Yeah, which is very interesting. I really appreciated Anne confronting Eleanor, because she says to Eleanor what we've basically all been saying this whole time. She says, look at you with your nose in the air, playing at our business. And that's exactly what we've been saying about her, is that she's trying to play pirate, and she is not a pirate. You are not one of us. This is not your life, but you're trying to insinuate yourself. And certainly her position is one, like Vane said, that she has power that just is. But that's not how she plays it. She plays it like she is an equal somehow, with these captains of the pirate ships. And she's like, you are nothing like our pirate captains. And when she said, like, it pains me to be right here breathing the same air as you or something like that, it's a really great exchange, actually.
Okay, so I have two things to say about this that that I love in this scene. Okay, first of all, we saw Anne. There was a moment before this where Anne was she had been guarding Max.
She'd been guarding
right?
Max.
She was guarding Max.
Jack pointed out that she really couldn't. Yeah.
Right. So they came to like rape Max some more. And there were these two things. One is when Eleanor did her little nod and Hornigold spoke to her, you see Hammond and the Ranger, the remaining eight Ranger crew, the rapey crew. You see them in the distance, and he blows Eleanor a kiss.
Oh yeah, and when he does that, it was my very first note of the whole episode. Was like, I hate this effing bald guy, and someone needs to kill him. And then later, I was like, wait, he totally eats it in this episode, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he definitely
exactly.
Dies. Thank goodness. Way to go, Anne.
Right, absolutely.
He had it coming.
Well, way to go, Eleanor. So this is what I'm going to say.
You're
this.
right.
Okay,
yeah,
so
this was
first,
Eleanor.
This was Eleanor.
Entirely right.
This was Eleanor, and what I have to say about Eleanor is that I think this episode represents a shift for Eleanor.
Mm-hmm.
But before I talk about that, I just want to say back to this whole thing about this being the first episode that's really about gender.
Yeah.
Anne says to Eleanor, like when Eleanor is so mad at Anne for having turned Max in, she says that night when she told you to fuck yourself, we should have toasted her. And if she had a cock, we probably would have.
Yep.
And
harsh language, but that's basically what she's saying. Like if this had been a man, he'd be the toast of the town right now, and we'd all be saying what a good job.
And this is after last episode where Anne basically said, if you had been a man, we would have just killed you for betraying us.
Yeah, yeah.
And then she said, if you had been a man and you had, if Max had been a man and told Eleanor to go fuck herself, we would have probably embraced her.
Yeah.
Instead of just raping her some more. And I feel like this is a great window into what has been going on with Anne during this.
Yes.
But
and of course Jack had that scene with her too when he said, I fear where this will end is that you'll be in that tent with Max.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
No, it's right. I mean, we really you said last episode that you felt like this was the first time we got to see Anne as a woman.
Yes.
And I think this is only this episode's really reinforcing
that was the
and
spark that started it, and you're right, this is reinforcing it. Mm-hmm.
Right. But the thing that is most significant, I think, in this whole episode, honestly, is Anne came to ask Anne came to ask Eleanor to kill Hammond, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then Eleanor says, "Oh no, this plan. Oh no, Max. I'm sorry, I keep mixing up the names." Anne says, "Oh, are you worried that this plan is too dangerous?" And Eleanor's response is, your plan isn't dangerous enough.
Right. She's like, you got to get all of them. You can't just kill Hammond. You have to kill them all. Yep. Which is a ballsy move, but absolutely accurate.
Right. And I feel like this is the moment. And this, again, piggybacks on last episode where we had all of these exchanges between Eleanor and Silver, where Silver really encouraged her to embrace the power that she actually had.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she did.
Yep.
And I feel like in this episode, this is where we see Eleanor take this to a whole nother level. And the next thing she does is she goes to Silver, right? She says, we need some help. And she goes to Silver.
Which was a great little moment, too. Yeah, we can't do it alone. We'll need some help. And then she goes to Silver of all people. But she's right. She sees in him that spark of the brilliance and the creativity. And sure enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm positive that he's the one who came up with the details of the plan.
Yes.
But the thing about the way she talked to him then is I want to bring up, like, I love how you really pointed out from the beginning her use of crass language.
Yes.
And this whole, like, trying to act like a pirate.
Mm-hmm.
When she's talking to Silver, she's turned the tables on him, one, and I am going to need to quote her because I love the way she talks to him.
Sure, yeah.
But the thing I love most about the way she talks to him she doesn't use a single swear word.
Wow.
Okay, maybe she does. Maybe I'm not gonna. Don't quote me on that
Right.
one. But
yeah,
she
not a single, but definitely
if
dials
she does,
it down.
she barely does. She uses exactly the kind of language you would expect from someone who is actually a leader.
Interesting.
She uses the language of an educated woman who has all of the financial power of an island. And first of all, she says to him, like, he's like, oh, how can I, how many ways can I say no to you?
Yeah.
And she says, okay, now I have to quote her because I love this so much. She says, I wasn't asking you to help me. I was granting you the opportunity to help me. But now, because of your tone, I'm disinclined to be so generous. Now you'll beg me for it.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. Yeah.
There are no swear words in that.
Right.
There is no talk about sex. There is nothing crude about this. This is the language of, exactly like Bane said before, this is the language of the woman who has power that just is.
That's a good point. Yeah, I like that.
So this, like, all of this, it's so funny. So many watches I've had of the show where I'm just kind of like, Eleanor, whatever, she's not so interesting to me. She actually has never been that interesting to me. So I've always been a little bit baffled by the level of feeling that people have towards her.
Oh, yeah.
Which, in a way, it's like everyone's given me the gift of actually really needing to focus on her. And focusing on her led me to see in this episode this huge shift in her demeanor.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
And right. And then she says to Silver, she says, I took your advice. You're the one who told me to allow Vane, to take the ban off of Vane. And by doing that, you gave me all of the power. I am now the person in charge of all of the finances on this island. Like, she's now, because of Silver, she is out from under the yoke of her father. The power actually does belong to her now.
Yeah.
It is she's no longer a figurehead representing her father's power that isn't her own power. Between last episode and this episode, the power did become hers.
Yeah,
like the vision that Vane had of her, which we could have easily contradicted because we said that she didn't have the power. It was her father's power. The power is hers now.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
there is a shift in her tactics, a shift in her language, a shift in her feeling about how she is. She says, I can protect. You have to do what I want now. You're going to beg me to do what I want now because I'm the person everyone needs to make happy.
Wow.
You need to make me happy. Flint needs to make me happy. I am actually the power now.
Man. Yeah.
And I just
right.
love
That's a good point. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. I don't think I'd put that together, but you're totally right.
And whether we like her or don't like her doing this, I mean, she's not like a sympathetic person doing this, but I feel like she finally is inhabiting the role that she pretended to be inhabiting up until now. And it's pretty powerful to watch her do that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's great.
That's it. That was my main thing I wanted to say about this episode.
Eleanor
Like it so stood out to me this time. It just was fascinating to me. And then at the end, we have Silver talking to her at the very end, like while he did go do her bidding. He did this like cool tricky thing where he got he did his cool tricky thing that convinced them that Anne had the pearls, and all of this machinations that get them to the Rex. But at the end, Silver says, I love this. He says, when I first met you, I pegged you for an easy mark. So like, this is him using con man language, which was great. Cause I was like, we've all known this about him, but he actually is using con man language now. But then he says, between you and Flint, I'm not sure who I need to be more afraid of now. And we have this cool cutting back and forth. So like, he's talking about this. And while he's talking about this, we're watching the slaughter at the Rex.
Yeah. Yep. That is true. Yep.
Which is like, that is total cinematic mafia language. Like, this is like, Like she is now the mob boss. Like
Yeah.
I just
No, you're right.
loved that. It's exactly like in a Godfather movie
Yep.
where you would see Al Pacino just like hanging out doing his thing quietly, standing there while cutting back and forth to like his minions killing everyone.
Doing the business. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good point. I like it.
So that's what I have to say about Eleanor. Again, people can still hate her.
Yep.
But I just feel like,
She's coming into her own. You're absolutely right about that.
In this moment, and not possibly not throughout the whole show. I mean, I'm not going to guarantee that she will ever, that she'll keep this narrative strength. But I feel like at this moment, she may be a personal enigma. She's no longer a narrative enigma.
Yeah.
Like the presentation of her and the reality of where the character is actually match up at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nope. I think that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's move on to Jack. And there's just 2 or 3 things that are important about Jack in this. We don't see him a lot, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, it's very clear from the beginning when the Ranger crew bursts into their room.
Yes.
And is, and are playing out their part in the scheme against them.
Mm-hmm.
It seems so obvious to me from the very first minute that he knows, like, he's surprised that they come in, but once they show him those pearls, he knows exactly what happened.
He does. Yeah. And it shows how smart he is.
I know.
I find Jack very compelling in this episode. This is when I really start to love him. Like, I always liked him. I found him compelling and interesting and kind of funny. But when you see his tenderness towards Anne and just this predicament that he has found himself in, and again, how dissatisfied he is. You were talking about how, no one's drinking lemonade on the porch in this show. And just how dissatisfied he is, and in how difficult a situation he's found himself. This is a lovely episode for Jack, really, in a lot of ways.
It is. I mean, especially because of the end. I mean, whatever happens in the middle, like he's upset. I mean, this is really, his world's falling down around him, and Anne has betrayed him.
Yes.
I mean, he's been trying to scrape together a life for the crew that remains to them.
Mm-hmm.
And, I really do believe that from the first minute he knows that's it. When they show him those pearls, he's like, that's it. When he says to her, darling, I'm disappointed in you, they read it as he's disappointed in her for hiding the pearls, but I read it as he knows that that's it. She has doomed their crew. And then at the end, when he asks her, what did Eleanor say? Like, what did Eleanor ask her? Like, how would Jack react to this plan? And Anne says, what does she say? She says, I told her if you had to choose between them and me, you'd choose me.
Mm-hmm. And he says, well, that's really fucking touching, Anne, which I thought was great too.
I know. And is this really our first moment of just seeing how awesome their relationship is?
It is. Yeah. Again, this is when we see how lovely they are together. Yeah.
They are. But again, it's just so lovely because they're not, it's not like, oh, sweetheart, I'm bringing you candies and flowers. It's just like, he's so harsh, but you know that underneath that is just this such loyalty and love.
Yeah. Yep. No, I agree.
It's gorgeous. Mm-hmm. It is gorgeous. So that's really it. It's just, recognizing that he understood a pretty intricate plot,
Yeah. And also this is the first time too that he says to Anne, I'm sorry that I didn't understand or I didn't appreciate how much all of this with Max is bothering you.
Yeah.
Which is a really important line to remember, that he says, I'm sorry I didn't appreciate this. And even now he's still struggling to understand. He's like, but this obviously is worth a lot to you if you're willing to kill 8 men who were formerly our brothers. Then there's something deeper here that I don't understand. And I'm still pissed off about it, that you're dragging me into it. But it's true. In the end, he chose Anne over the crew.
Right. I mean, I think this is truly our first. We've seen Jack be smart. We've seen him be conniving. We've seen him be, working around people, managing Vane. But this is, I think, this is the first time we get to see the thing about Jack that I most love, which is his loyalty to Anne.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just the most touching thing, and I'm so excited for all of our listeners who are watching for the first time that now we've opened that door
Yes.
and they get to walk through it and see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then we have that
So, yeah.
moment there at the end. I don't want to gloss over where where Max goes back to Noonan's, and
I know.
she turns to Anne and says, "Thank you for what you did," and touches her hand, I think. And Anne pulls away and
She
says, "Well, I
does.
didn't do it for you," when she
Right.
obviously did. Like,
I know.
that was her
I know.
entire motivation.
I know. It's pretty amazing. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we get to enter that world now. I'm really,
It's really
very
exciting.
excited.
Yeah.
I am very excited.
Ready to guns! Full complement!
Okay, so I feel like we've talked about the meat of our themes already a lot. I just wanted to bring up the themes that I felt like were really kind of the thesis statements of this
Yes.
episode that tie into past episodes and are the themes that are going to bring us forward. And one is the shifting sands. Again, we had the which I am just going to call this theme "Shifting Sands" forever. Now, I love
that's
that
good.
you
Perfect.
coined it such, and it's so good.
Did I? I'll take it.
That we see coalitions being built
Yes.
and the strength of coalitions. We had the coalitions of the slaves and the walrus crew, which really was just obviously so strong, and then this coalition of Eleanor and Anne.
Yeah.
Just again, I mean, that one especially, they really had only animosity to each other and understood that they needed each other and that they were so much stronger as a team than they were singly. So this is, again, we will always be watching this. There will always, these are all very smart people and all very
we have
practical
Eleanor
people.
and Hornigold too, don't forget.
Right, we did, and Eleanor and Silver, which was a continuation also from last episode. And just coalition building is always going to be important.
Yep.
And again, these are people with goals.
And we also saw the failures of those coalitions trying to be built when Logan was trying to turn the crew on Flint.
Absolutely.
And Billy wasn't sure, and he was on the fence, and then Gates came in and kept it all from happening. Yeah.
Yep. So
anything can turn on a dime at any point. Yep.
And then the second theme is the theme of slavery, and we've now been introduced to it, and we can't go into it, but this is going to be a huge theme in this show. So just something to keep an eye on, and I'm saying it just so that we understand, like, this was a strong part of this episode. This will be a strong thing to keep an eye on, and we will continue to talk about it. And the last one is the nature of power. Oh, right. And at the very end, we do see Vane at the very end. We see him arrive and see the actual person that he had hallucinated. So we just, I feel like we talked about this a lot with Eleanor, but just this tension between power that is and power that is earned. And I feel like, Vane had an idea of Eleanor. Eleanor had an idea of what the pirates were, and we're trying to emulate that.
Yes.
He maybe, have some goal of emulating what he thinks her power has always been. I believe that she only now has actually inhabited the power that Vane always thought she had.
Yep.
So power that is and power that is earned is something also that we are going to discuss a lot.
I think that's good. All right. Well, then, that'll wrap us up. Thank you again for listening. And before we go, we want to give a shout out to some of our listeners who have really been bringing up some excellent points, getting through to us on email or through Twitter or whatever the means are. We've got a handful, Daphne, don't we? You had some interesting things to say?
Yes. We've had some fun ones. Especially, I would like to thank Kurt Herder for on Twitter for... Liz had already made the Downton Abbey connection with Carson and Mary. But then Kurt Herder made the comparison of Flint, played by Toby Stephens, and his mother, plays the Dowager Countess in Downton Abbey, and how both of them have really special skills of the disapproving stare.
Yes.
And so there is you can see a bit of that on our Twitter, but really just think about it for a minute and you will just love that, because this is a family that knows how to do a disapproving stare. Kelly has been tweeting Marcus Aurelius quotes at us that are
very cool
really
too.
Fun and relevant.
Yeah.
You can find a lot of them if you search the hashtag Fathoms Deep on Twitter. I also want to use this as a reminder, because not all of them have the hashtag. I know our hashtag's kind of long, but if you use the hashtag Fathoms Deep, it'll be really fun for other listeners and for us to find stuff easily.
To be able to find the things more easily. Yes, please do.
Right,
Agreed.
Right. If you tweet at us, we see it, which is great, and we'll retweet some. But if you use the hashtag, then everyone gets to search it. And then Andrew did tell us that there is a way to look at the special effects for how the ships are done, but then he also said that maybe Liz shouldn't do that because it might detract from your special relationship with that.
Fair enough, Andrew. Thanks for looking out for me.
And lastly, Jen, we did bring you up already, but we do really thank you for finding this connection to Max. The hymn, "What a Wondrous Life This
Wondrous
life
Love.
Is this?"
What a wondrous love is this?
Wondrous love, excuse me. A wondrous love is this, which uses the tune that was previously used for the Ballad of Captain Kidd.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah, so this is in Eleanor and Maxine's in 1 and 2. Also, when Max returns in episode 6. I couldn't figure out, what Bear McCreary is doing here. We do know that he's always had a love for music from the 18th century.
Yeah, I think that's all it is. It's just harkening back to that original time and giving us something that takes us back. Yeah, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it might be. If anyone can think of a specific connection, tell us. We would love to hear it. But we do know that Bear, he has said, especially in relation to Outlander, that he has always been a super fan of Jacobite music and of music from that period. So we love him. So and that's it. And we got emails from Kelly and Katie, which I did not get into, but I will email both of you back.
Right. Yeah. And I do want to thank Kelly for pointing out, she was talking about how Richard Guthrie in the last episode was essentially making a run on the bank of Eleanor, which really helped to kind of, like, for me, it really helped me to understand that scene. So, and to also get just what a villain Richard Guthrie was being at this moment, and how much he knew that this was absolutely going to screw Eleanor. So thank you for putting that into language that really made sense to me, and hopefully will click in the minds of some of our other listeners too, who are having trouble with that, because the politics are hard to
absolutely follow. And also, Kelly, one last thing is that Kelly was talking about Robert Louis Stevenson, who wrote Treasure Island. Wrote a lot on the topic of quote unquote civilization and civilization and not civilization, and she recommends that people read the short story Ebb Tide, which is a good example of Robert Louis Stevenson really addressing the hypocrisy in quote unquote civilization.
That's
so
awesome.
Everyone go read that.
Thanks, Kelly. All right, so before we sign off, Daphne, your favorite moment from episode 6?
Well, I tipped my hand too early. My favorite thing is the use of color in this episode. The use of the blues for the night shots versus the reds and the yellows of the explosion.
That's nice.
So
I like that.
I love that. I really could just look at those scenes all day long.
Yeah.
And Flint with his coat.
Yeah, mine is closer to that. I love Flint on the deck of the Walrus and this whole thing. I love when he steps out onto that plank, and I love when he's on the side of the boat with Billy and the wind is blowing and they're cutting the ropes. It's, again, very physical, and it's just awesome. It's so cool to watch. It's badass is what it is, and I really like it. Good fun.
Yeah, he's just visually badass pirate captain in this one, no question.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap us up for this week. We're looking forward to next week, where we jump into episode 7 and really get into the big finale as it's coming up in 8. So we look forward to seeing you all then. And until next week, I'm Liz Stevens.
And I'm Daphne Olive.
Fathoms Deep is a Common Room Radio production. For more information and access to other programs, please visit us at commonroomradio.com. To show your support, pledges of as little as $1 a month can be made to patreon.com/commonroomradio. Join the conversation by using the hashtag FatHomsDeep and follow us on Twitter at BlackSalesCast. We ask that you keep your tweets respectful and positive, and please avoid spoilers. If you have more to say, we want to hear it in all its spoiler glory. Email us at podcast@commonroomradio.com with Fathoms Deep in the subject line. Thanks for listening.